Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for our AI Apprenticeships and the Future of Work webinar. We're excited to have you with us today for this important conversation as part of National Apprenticeship Week, which takes place April 26th through May 2nd. And then now a few housekeeping items. Please keep yourselves on mute until the Q&A portion. Feel free to keep your cameras on or off based on your comfort level. Use the chat box for any questions, comments, or technical issues, and we'll help address those. Submit questions for the Q&A session through the chat. This webinar is also being recorded, and we will share it with participants afterwards. We'll also have a brief survey at the end of the webinar and hope you guys fill it out. That feedback is very useful for us. My name is Emmy DeGene. I'm the Director of Program Management and proud to be here representing the Technology Association of Georgia Education Collaborative, or lovingly known as TAG-Ed. On behalf of our team, thank you for spending the next hour with us as we explore one of the most important workforce questions facing employers today. How do we build talent pipelines that are ready for the age of artificial intelligence? But before we begin, I'd love to know a little bit more about who is joining us today, so I'm going to launch a quick poll and just take the next minute to take it so we can know who's with us today. Do we have some job seekers on the call, some students? Awesome. Leave it up for about 10 more seconds. All right, thank you all. So we have some HR talent development on the line as well as the biggest challenges facing your organization. I see that keeping pace with AI, so this is right time. Thank you guys. And how do we prepare organizations for an AI-driven workforce change? Or how well is your organization prepared? We have somewhat prepared, very prepared, kind of all over. All right, thank you guys for sharing that. And hopefully this webinar will help address some of your questions. And the next slide, please. So as we know, AI is rapidly transforming the way we work between the skills business needs and the way organizations recruit, train, and retain talent. Every industry is being impacted, from healthcare to finances to logistics. AI will affect the workforce. The question is, how prepared is your organization to respond? At the same time, many employers are facing similar challenges: difficulty finding qualified candidates, rising hiring costs, growing competition for skilled workers. And we know traditional hiring methods alone are often not enough to meet today's workforce demands. That is why apprenticeships are more relevant than ever. Through registered tech apprenticeships, we're able to offer employers a strategic, cost-effective way to build talent from within, reduce hiring risk, and develop workers with the exact skills needed for long-term success. These programs begin with the intent to retain talent, creating stronger outcomes for both employers and employees. And we're especially proud to highlight TAG-Ed's Registered Tech Apprenticeship Program, which launched in March of 2024. Our unique tech apprenticeship model provides a clear step-by-step pathway into in-demand careers. Apprentices receive between 1,000 to 2,000 hours of paid on-the-job training, gaining real-world experience while contributing to their employers from day one. At completion of the program, apprentices earn a U.S. Department of Labor Certificate of Completion, recognizing specialized training in a specific occupation. Importantly, no college degree or prior technical experience is required to begin, which helps expand access to high-growth careers and remove all additional barriers. There is also no cost to the apprentice or the employer for technical training, making this an accessible and practical workforce solution. And the impact is clear. 92% of apprentices in the program come from underrepresented groups, demonstrating how apprenticeships can also create a stronger, more inclusive tech workforce. Today, you'll hear from industry leaders and workforce partners about how apprenticeships are solving real hiring challenges, helping organizations prepare for AI-driven change and creating new opportunities for talent across Georgia and beyond. Whether you're an employer, HR leader, educator, workforce partner, or someone interested in the future of work, we hope today's session gives you practical ideas you can take back to your organization immediately. Now, to help the stage for our panel conversation, we'll begin with a brief look at the current state of the workforce, why apprenticeships matter right now, and how AI is reshaping talent needs across industries. So, thank you again for being here today, and we'll get started by introducing Steve King. Steve is a workforce development leader with extensive experience creating employer driven talent solutions, expanding high impact apprenticeship programs. As business development leader at Apprenti, he leads the national growth of registered apprenticeship programs, working with employers, government agencies, and community organizations to help close critical workforce gaps. His work focuses on building sustainable, results-oriented talent pipelines that align with current labor market needs. Steve develops strategic partnerships that connect organizations with skilled talent through apprenticeship pathways, supporting both business growth and long-term career opportunities for participants. With decades of experience in workforce strategy, business development, sales, and operations and leadership, Steve brings practical, outcomes focused approach to helping organizations meet the evolving demand of today's workforce. So now I'll turn it over to you, Steve.
Good afternoon and welcome, and thank you for that introduction and being invited to be part of this event today. I've been asked to talk about the current state of the workforce, what trends we are seeing, and how workforce is changing and where things seem to be headed, especially with all the AI talk that is out there. Overall, the U.S. has a modest unemployment rate with unfortunately a very low employee engagement rate of only 20%. We'll get back to that in a minute. And there's a rapid transition towards AI integrated roles. Part of the reason for the lower engagement rate is that people are feeling the effects of AI in the workplace and anxiety about their individual roles and where things are headed overall based on AI's disruption of the workforce. In regards to this disruption, despite the displacement of some roles, demand remains high for some specialized roles like nurse practitioners, data scientists, and information security analysts. Some sectors continue to have shortages like healthcare, cybersecurity, and unskilled labor. The roles that seem to be affected are more traditional clerical and administrative roles. Roles like postal clerks, bank tellers, data entry clerks. They're some of the fastest declining occupations as automation takes over routine tasks. In fairness, this type of transition is not something we haven't seen before. In the 90s, when personal computers became affordable, many positions were eliminated when people could now type their own messages and emails and do an email versus having to fax it, look things up on the internet versus having someone to research things at the library. Though we saw job losses then, there were way more increases in positions as improvements in efficiencies created new occupations. Expanding on this, experts estimate that 50 to 55% of all U.S. jobs will be materially reshaped by AI by 2029. Instead of widespread layoffs, firms are using AI to increase productivity, often leading to a 6% actual increase in employment growth as companies scale faster. The most exposed industries, though, include technology, professional services, and finance. Global estimates currently suggest that 92 million jobs may be displaced by 2030, but this is expected to be offset by the emergence of 170 million new roles. Employers are increasingly prioritizing skill-based hiring because of this over traditional degree requirements to widen talent pools. It is estimated that 39% of workers' core skills will need to change by 2030 due to technology advancements. So, in the apprenticeship world and in the world I will live in every day, how are we looking at this? Truth of the matter is, everyone's talking about AI and everyone's trying to figure out what to do with it, companies included. We're starting to see that and it's pretty clear that when we talk about AI, it is not a tech job per se. All job categories can and should be affected. We're now talking about AI-enabled roles for things like accountants, project managers, HR, software developer, even production positions that are on the floor, looking at how that all comes together. I'll come back to that because I think that's a really key thing as we think about AI in general. This AI-enabled word is really important for organizations to consider. The truth of the matter is, whole organizations and all the people in them are needing training and direction. AI usage has a weird possibility to occur. A lot of us have played with AI, and as we play with it, we figure out ways that it works for us. Inside an organization, if everyone were trying to figure out how to use AI for their individual roles, an octopus effect occurs where we have legs and directions going all sorts of places. This is not a good way to actually bring on a new technology. Companies need to figure out focused processes so that people that are in the accounting department use AI similarly versus dissimilarly so that the effects can be out there and grow and make those things happen better. Also, one of the weird things about this is there's not a huge ecosystem of talent to hire. So with limited talent available, how does one actually develop their own talent or what do they need to do to be able to meet the needs of this growth? We're starting to have conversations even with companies who are bringing on recent college graduates and they're immediately putting them into an AI enabled apprenticeship with the idea that what they learned in college, which they just graduated from, isn't teaching them and having them be prepared for the job itself. So when you think about apprenticeship itself has a factor where there's some knowledge that one learns in a classroom and what one learns on the job that is important to make that happen. So part of this role is we're thinking about AI, especially in apprenticeship and in organizations to work. Organizations have to figure out what an individual will learn on the job based on the classroom knowledge that they have so that they can be productive and helpful for organizations associated with that. We have some companies that have decided that this process of apprenticeship, which has this, we want a person to get to an end state, needs to go, and we want them all to get to the same end state. We don't want them to go all these different ways, that this is now their process for hiring. It doesn't matter where they're coming from. If they're coming from something that doesn't have any, they haven't had any previous experience to a role, or maybe they're coming from a college by going through an apprenticeship where they basically they're outlining what they should learn on the job, and they're having a say in what they learn um, in the classroom part of that is making it so the outcomes at the end make more sense. You know, when we think about AI apprenticeship in general, the on-the-job learning part is that key thing, that part that matters. And so, whereas we work with organizations and talk about that, they're starting to see that I need to have a say in how to make this and come out to be what it is. So, some of the things we're seeing is organizations are not looking at, oh, we're going to do an apprenticeship for our software developers or to get more software developers. They're looking at as we need to do apprenticeships for our whole organization, for all the positions associated with that. To think about this in a more general sense, the job that today of the accountant is not going to be the job of that accountant 2 years from now. Without AI being part of the knowledge base of that, the person who is the accountant today won't be able to function in the world 2 years from now. So that person needs to be upskilled to the level of knowledge to be able to do that because the job in the future of the accountant will just have AI being part of that. Every job will be affected like this. And so as we think about how we solve this, apprenticeship is a good solution for that because it's actually creates a pathway and a structured pathway to make that happen. So for us, we're having organizations talk about their whole organization going through a type of an apprenticeship. And there is still the knowledge of the specific role, but how does AI play in that specific role to make that happen? It's a very exciting time, kind of crazy, a little bit going on there, but sure glad that we're here and these things are happening. And I think as you look at what you want to do next with your workforce and also as an individual, realizing, hey, apprenticeship can be the solution to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Those were very thoughtful and right-timed insights. Next, I'd like to introduce our lovely moderator, Becky DeMattis. Becky is an account manager of channel markets at Apprenti and subject matter expert in registered apprenticeship. She supports business development across channel markets and provides technical assistance to help organizations build and scale effective apprenticeship programs. Becky previously held leadership roles with the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, where she managed federal grants and expanded apprenticeship initiatives. Becky will be joined by our panelists, including Omawale Cassell, who is the Vice President of the Exchange Program at SDI Presence, where he leads client partnerships, develops emerging talent, and creates new pathways into tech careers. He previously served as the founding director of Pritzker Tech Talent Labs at the University of Illinois, where he helped launch a software development apprenticeship program with partners including SAP and John Deere. An entrepreneur and innovator, Omowale has founded Education Technology Ventures and holds degrees from Harvard Business School, the University of Michigan, and the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. With a decade of progressive HR experience, we'll also be joined by Annie Nguyen, who currently serves as the VP of People at Qgenda, the leading healthcare workforce management platform. As a strategic partner to the executive team, she specializes in aligning people initiatives. Sorry, I just noticed, Eve, can you advance the slide, please? Next one. Annie is the VP of People at Qgenda, the leading healthcare workforce management platform. As a strategic partner to the executive team, she specializes in aligning people initiatives with core business objectives, focusing on the full employee experience lifecycle. Annie is a firm believer in the power of mentorship and enjoys empowering individuals at every level to see their full potential. Outside of work, Annie spends time with her husband and two dogs playing pickleball and crocheting. Next, we'll have Alan Kohili, who brings an extensive expertise in talent acquisition to Skillstorm, where he leads the recruitment of high-performing candidates. He previously served as the SVP of recruitment at Reviture and Pearson Online Learning Services and as managing director at Compass Knowledge. With more than 20 years of experience in higher education, enrollment management. Allen holds a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and a master's degree in college student personnel from Bowling Green State University. Last but not least, we have Charlene Poe, who is a business development consulting director for the Southeast at Apprenti, where she leads employer partnerships and designs registered apprenticeship talent pipelines to address critical workforce needs. She is also the founder of Strategic Engagement Group and a trusted advisor on skills-based workforce strategies at the intersection of industry, education, and emerging technologies, which includes AI. And now I'll turn it over to Becky, and we can start with our panel discussion.
Awesome. Thank you, Emmy. I really appreciate the introduction, and I'm happy to be sitting here today with our fantastic lineup of speakers for our panel. Thank you all for joining me today. Feel free to pop in to answer whenever one of the questions is something that you feel you can speak to. I'm going to start with our first question, which is, what hiring or talent pipeline challenges led your organization to explore apprenticeships?
Becky, I'd be happy to answer that from the Skillstorm point of view. Skillstorm started as a technical staffing firm, and what we found was that technical staffing involved contacting the same candidates and moving them from client A to client B, and then maybe a year later back from B to A. So there was no growth of new talent. So we changed our model and became a company that designs, builds, and deploys technical US-based technical teams at scale for our clients. That means we're hiring young technologists, training them through apprenticeships in new technologies that they don't know, and placing them with our clients in teams of anywhere from 10 to 90. So we've seen this model take off. And the key is we're creating new talent from these young tech professionals They get out of college, they have great technical knowledge of computer science, but they don't know the technologies that the clients are hiring for. They can't program in Salesforce, Appian, the list goes on and on.
Very
Yeah,
good and
that
nice. Good.
from an SDI perspective, we're part of a broader initiative in the greater Chicagoland area that's really focused on some of the communities on the south and the west side that have higher than average unemployment rates. And so if you look at the national unemployment rate, it's about 4.3%. In some of these communities, it's double or triple, upwards of 14 to 17%. And so what we were really trying to figure out is that instead of having, sort of the central business district in Chicago do well, how can we bring other parts of the city along on the south and the west side? And so when you sort of think about apprenticeship and you sort of think about skills-based hiring, what we found is that it's a pretty rapid path for people to learn a skill and then learn alongside an employer to really deploy that skill and to understand how they can get, sort of further along on that pathway. And so I think that for us, apprenticeship was a way to start to get more labor force participation on the south and the west side of Chicago. And it's been very rewarding to see how we've been able to change at least, one community so far in Greater Grand Crossing and how we're going to start to look at other areas within the city of Chicago.
Absolutely. Apprenticeship is such a rewarding field to be working in. Thank you both for your insights. Any other thoughts, or should I move on to our next question?
No, actually, from the QGenda side, we have a history of hiring new grads who have just graduated from college. But we learned about this program and actually had an opportunity to really dig into what positions would make sense to take on an apprenticeship. So we've had one successful apprentice so far, and she's doing really well here.
She is fantastic. I've met her personally. I'm so glad to see that she's being successful with you. All right. So, to our panels, how did you determine that a registered tech apprenticeship program was the right solution?
I can tell you that from the SkillStorm point of view, we specialize in providing what they call the RIT or the classroom portion of the training, but we do pay for that and we do pay our trainees. And so we were able to partner with large corporations who were looking for folks who could hit the ground running. And so even though they're completing their on-the-job training with our corporate partners, they've already got the technical training in seat. We do it in 3 months typically. And the curriculums are custom designed by our clients, and also they provide the projects that our folks work on so that when our folks go and are deployed on project, they're being productive from day one. There's no 6 to 9 month training period for the client, even though they're still getting their on-the-job training to complete their apprenticeship. So the models worked great for us and our clients.
I think the thing that I
Becky,
would add, sorry, go ahead.
I'd like to jump in, Becky. Charlene here at Apprenti. And since our inception, we've worked with over 350 employers. And what we're seeing from a lot of those employers, apprenticeship really solves major hiring solutions. So typically when traditional hiring was not producing the consistent talent pipelines that they're looking for, apprenticeship really came in to solve that problem. Really looking at the need for specific roles, job readiness skills, and really looking at the opportunity to have more control over the talent that is being produced rather than trying to find and hope that the talent that's available in the market would align with their needs. So I think apprenticeship is the right solution in all of those circumstances, and that's what we're seeing across the board with the employers that we work with. I'll pass it back to you, Costello.
Sure, thank you. So I think that from a registered apprenticeship makes a lot of sense because when you sort of think about an apprenticeship model overall, right, it's not a college degree necessarily, right? Like it's not the sort of traditional certification. And so when you think about the labor market and most people, I think it's like 2/3 of the labor market does not have a college diploma, right? And
Yeah.
so you don't have a registration that's associated with that, you start to have, sort of like a marketplace signaling thing where it's like, well, the people from the university, they have a degree. What are the people who are getting this skills-based training? What can I sort of point to? And so I think that from a registered apprenticeship perspective, it makes a lot of sense to make sure that you have some sort of certification, some sort of entity that is saying, this is a good idea. The curriculum has been reviewed. The skills associated with have been validated. I think on the other side of it, when you sort of think about the economics associated with training, right? Like short-term training, skills-based training can be relatively expensive for people who are trying to get into family-sustaining wages, into these family-sustaining careers. And so being a registered apprenticeship allows folks to tap into different sources of funding, right? Whether it's WIOA, whether it's grants, otherwise. And so I think that sort of like from both the learner perspective, from a sort of credentialing and sort of a cost perspective, but also like as a employer that we bring folks on, but we also sort of, staff them to different clients. It's helpful when we can say that there's a registration and there's, the related technical instruction, and then they have to do a certain amount of hours in a given year. And so I think that that also just helps validate that while folks may not have a university credential per se, these folks still do bring a lot of benefit to the table.
Oh, Mawala, you hit the nail right on the head. I absolutely love that aspect of registered apprenticeship. What skills or competencies have you found most valuable in apprentices entering your organization?
Yeah, so I'll speak from QGenda. For us, it's making sure that that person has good communication skills, they're adaptable, they can work well with others, which I feel like is part of this curriculum itself. And then most importantly, it's just their resiliency to change. Coming into a tech organization, there's constantly something going on or something moving around. And for our apprentice who have joined us, having those skills has just made them really successful here.
I'd echo what Annie said. We require certain tech knowledge, and we screen pretty heavily. But as many or more of our candidates fail to move forward because of a lack of soft skills or communication skills and the ability to work in team settings as tech skills. So it's really important to us, and we notice with our clients that they tend to be happier with the people who have great interpersonal skills and the people who have great tech skills.
That's absolutely one of the things that even with Apprenti, when we're doing our screening for candidates, we're looking for that grit. We're looking for somebody who can come in and can work with all different aspects of the team. And we work with the employer to find out what type of person is going to be that best fit for you. So fabulous insights from everyone here. Let me see here. What's our next question? How do apprenticeships compare to traditional hiring pathways in terms of readiness and retention?
So I'll take that one from a perspective, apprentice perspective. When you think about traditional hiring pathways, back to my colleague's point, you're seeing a system that is really built for 35% of the population, folks that have degrees. And we're seeing a system that looks at certain proxies in order to determine whether that candidate is ready to do the job and able to do the job. The degree being one of them, a certificate being one of them, previous job roles, job titles. That's the benchmark. What we're finding in reality is candidates that come into the workplace using that traditional approach may not necessarily be able to fit into the environment. Maybe they know some of the role, but they don't know all of it. So the ramp up time is significantly extended. And we're seeing a lot of that happening again because we're trying to fit something that was designed for 35% of the population and apply it to the entire population of our workforce. So that creates challenges on the readiness side. What we're seeing with the apprenticeship model is that readiness is built in from day one, where the training that is being developed by the program in conjunction with the employer, in conjunction oftentimes with colleges and universities and other training providers, is really designed to align with what the job looks like and what the skills and competencies that are required by the employer, by the industry, are needed. That's on the readiness side. On the retention side, again, because we're trying to apply one methodology that has been developed for 35% of the population to everyone, you tend to find that traditional hiring produces very high attrition rates. So less people are staying in the job. The turnover within the first year or two is significantly higher than what you would find with apprenticeships. At Apprenti, we're seeing 90% on average in terms of retention at the employer, which is really exceptional compared to other approaches such as internships, externships, or hiring directly from those that graduate college. So I think those are some of the differences that I'd like to point out.
Thank you, Charlene. Panelists, any other insight when it comes to apprentices or apprenticeships and versus the traditional hiring pathway in terms of readiness or retention?
I'll just say that what our clients find is that even though they're paying us for the training and that fee on top of what they would normally pay the employee, they see a better return on investment with people who've gone through our training first. One, as Charlene said, our retention rate year 1 to 2 is 97%. And secondly, there's no training time for them. They're used to new employees taking 6 to 9 months in some cases to be productive or billable if they're client facing. Ours are ready from day one. And so even though there's an extra fee, we've done the math with them, and the return on investment is better using the apprenticeship program.
Absolutely.
And I think that what I might add is that, so we're SDI, we're both an employer, but we also sort of provide apprentices to clients. So we've trained 87 folks so far. 84 of those have been placed, and 14 of those have been converted to full time. So like at the conclusion of their apprenticeship, our clients have the opportunity to bring those folks on as W-2 employees. And so the feedback that we often get from our client partners is that they just have a different energy. Like there's a different hunger, there's a different drive, there's a different sort of focus. And I think that, these are not kids that we're sort of bringing through a program, right? The average age of our apprentices is about 30 to 33 years old. And they were typically making about $15,000 to $30,000 before they started with us. And by the conclusion, when they're being insourced to our clients, they're upwards of $70,000 plus benefits. So you're almost at $100,000 pay package all in. And so I think that like when you think about that from a business perspective, like a client is not going to make $100,000 decision if they don't believe in what they're getting. And so I think that while people on the front end might think, like, do they have the skills? Do they have the capability? Do they have the capacity? After that 12 months of being able to observe directly, I think we're seeing a tremendous level of excitement. And then our clients, they then sort of take that further to say, we want to do more project-based work with you all. We want to sort of do this. We've also started to have our clients push into training with us, which is sort of interesting because they're saying in order to get closer to that workplace readiness, we're going to do a couple days as part of your, 8 to 14 weeks of training. And so like that gets them closer to that workplace readiness. But I've done traditional hiring like many, many years ago at Ford Motor Company, as I've often been a hiring manager. And I don't know that they're, I think that they're on par. I think that apprentices are on par. And I think that that's something that would surprise a lot of people, because when you sort of think about the level of investment that it takes, I've got one child in college and one child on the way to college. And the amount of money that I'm spending to get them ready for that first career compared to what we sort of have to put in from an investment perspective for an apprentice, I think that from an economic perspective, people are going to start to make some really, really different decisions.
Yeah. And I mean, to your point, registered apprenticeship is not it's not taking away from that traditional hiring. It's just an addition. It's another pipeline in order to make the employer have that full circle workforce platform ready for any individual. Let's see. What advice would you give employers who are considering launching or joining an apprenticeship program?
I'd say
I'll
one
be
of the
happy.
things that you've got, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go right ahead and I'll go after you.
Thanks, Charlie. I'd say one of the things we see is that you've got companies right here that can support you in this. We talk to a lot of companies that are overwhelmed by the process
Mm.
and they don't know how they're going to do it, who's going to be in charge. So I think, one thing they can take away is there are companies, several of them here in this presentation, that can assist with that process, that can help you with the training, that can help you with the transition. You don't have to set up a whole team yourself.
Thank you, Alan. I agree with that 100%. Apprenti is here to help support the entire journey from designing what your program is going to look like all the way through to helping you with reporting and compliance. And that is something, as Alan said, a lot of employers, they're a bit hesitant when they think about apprenticeship and stepping into it because they think it's going to be a lot of work, a lot of paperwork, but Apprenti's here to assist with that. I'd also like to add that this should really be a business decision. A lot of employers and a lot of folks think of apprenticeship as a program, and I see it more as a strategy for developing your workforce and a smart strategy when it comes to business. And when we look at the way we look at our supply pipeline, the way we look at a lot of other business processes and workflows, we tend to think very strategically. But for some reason, when it comes to hiring, I see employers repeating the same process in terms of traditional hiring. And this is a way to really avert that. And I think starting with what is the business problem that your organization is facing? Was it a hard to fill role? Are you experiencing high turnovers? Do you have roles where there's inconsistent performance? These are all good opportunities for you to start an apprenticeship program and make sure that you identify clearly what those skills and competencies are as they align with the expectations of the job. So maybe you have some really high performing individuals that are in the job currently. Take a look at what they're doing and see how you can model that for developing your program. And of course, Apprenti is there to help you and guide you along the way. Definitely, you want to make sure that there's cross-functional representation when considering your program. A lot of times I see organizations really focus on just having the hiring manager or maybe someone from talent development or talent acquisition as part of that project team for your apprenticeship program. I would recommend ensuring that you have full representation in terms of what departments would the role touch, how do they interact, and really look at it from that type of cross-functional perspective. Apprenticeship really works well in organizations when it's connected directly to how the work actually gets done. So it's not a hiring project. It's not, isolated to specific departments, but more of a business strategy that should be very cross-functional.
Yeah, that buy-in from all departments is really crucial to making registered apprenticeship a success, Charlene. I agree with you there. Team, how do you see apprenticeships shaping your future workforce strategy?
Well, it definitely diversifies it from the talent that we hire and just looking at folks who actually, let me take a step back here. It's really taking a focus on skills-based hiring, moving from beyond what they have experience with. It's really digging into the skills that they've learned over time and how it transfers into the job itself.
I mean, the thing that I would probably say is that apprentices bring a level of creativity and innovation, right? And you think about the global competitiveness, right? You have organizations that are competing on a world stage, and you've got quite a bit of technology disruption from, the emergence of AI and some of these tools that have been under development. And this is not the last disruption that we're going to experience, right? We're calling it AI right now, but in 5 or 10 years, it's going to be something else, right? The pace of sort of technology change and the pace of sort of like productivity gains are going to continue to increase. And so when you sort of think about the apprenticeship model, like I think you want something that allows you to develop skills and immediately deploy, right? Like instead of sort of waiting for a period of time, like we have a project with the client, a large biopharmaceutical company, and we did a software development cohort with AI enablement. So Python was the foundation. Then we added GitHub Copilot and sort of making sure that the folks understood how to stitch different code together. And these folks that are new to technology or never done this before are now working on a knowledge graph to basically bring together all the information in that organization to help them make better decisions, right? And so when you sort of think about that is leading edge innovation. And so those folks, because no one ever told them they couldn't, we basically told them that they could. So like, because we told them that they could, they actually believe that they can. And so it creates a very virtuous cycle from an employment perspective, from an innovation perspective. And I just think that, if you're not tapping into the full sort of population of potential talent, then your organization is not going to be globally competitive. And like, there are any number of ways that you can sort of figure out how to get the logistics and operations right. But I think the first thing that employers should think about is sort of getting to the belief sort of narrative and saying, do I think that this talent can do what we're going to ask them to do? And if you believe that, I mean, there's any number of models, any number of partners that you can tap into. And I think that, the business sort of results are where apprenticeships really shine, right? From a retention perspective, folks tend to stick and stay. And so like you might get excited about, graduates from university, but they're looking to constantly sort of trade up. Whereas these folks are super excited about the opportunity and they want to contribute to the organization over the long term.
Absolutely. We say apprenticeships are sticky. They like to stick around. How do you see apprenticeships contributing? Oh, I'm sorry. One last thought. I apologize.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I think apprenticeships, this is the time for apprenticeships to take over. Unfortunately, right now, it's less than 1% of our workforce are in apprenticeship programs, which should be a bigger number, but that's another conversation. But I think with the rapid changes that we're seeing, given AI skills, given the volume of different types of AI tools that are coming out, there is the need for training, but it doesn't stop there. There is also the need for time to not only get the training, but to develop those skills. And what other model exists out there to really help employers do that, but apprenticeships? It builds in that introduction of a new tool, training on the tool, and the time to develop those real world competencies that we need by applying them to the job. So I think that's super critical in the way we're looking at workforce strategy as we think about AI and how it connects to apprenticeships.
Thank you, Charlene. How do you see apprenticeships contributing to a more inclusive tech workforce?
I'll quickly say in SkillStorm, our clients typically hire from a certain group of universities. And when we come in, we're fishing from a different pool. We're much broader in our hiring. We're bringing in candidates that they're not used to seeing. And they're often amazed by how many candidates we can bring in and wondering why they're not seeing them. And it's because a lot of these companies aren't going to change their hiring practices. They go to certain places and not others. And so in a lot of ways, it is diversifying the workforce and bringing a new population into the companies that we work with.
Just reflecting back on my time at Ford when I was leading campus recruiting at University of Illinois, there were 10 schools that we identified that we would spend about $1 million a year to go and find early career talent in either, engineering or business. And when you looked at those 10 schools, you could map it directly to who are VPs and SVPs at Ford Motor Company, right? So like Ford Motor Company, 300,000 plus employees, and we would only go to like 10 schools that we would spend a bunch of money on. It wasn't a bad thing, right? I mean, like clearly people from those schools have demonstrated that they could rise in the ranks. But when you sort of think about what we're doing from an exchange perspective at SDI, so we make an intentional focus on recruiting from the neighborhood. So we're on the south side of Chicago, which is heavily African American. And we have seen that, if you look at tech broadly, right, there's not a lot of diversity in tech, even though there has been many efforts to try to diversify the tech industry. And so I think that when you sort of see having a place-based investment in the greater Grand Crossing neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, folks are getting into tech that probably would have never had an opportunity absent of this apprenticeship program that we're running here. And so I think that it's a way to bring more people in. We're very proud about gender parity, right? Like we're 50% male, 50% female. That's also not, sort of traditional for the tech industry. And so I think that what we're trying to do is continue to, create opportunities broadly. But what we're finding is that by being in an area like, one of the sort of popular sayings is that, talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And so what we're trying to do is say, what would happen if we move the opportunity closer to the neighborhoods that have a tremendous amount of need from a unemployment and an underemployment perspective? And what we're seeing is that these folks can perform at global clients just the same as folks that came from, my alma mater or whatever. Like there is talent that is out there. And I think that it's incumbent upon business leaders to figure out how to bring talent into organizations, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to solve business problems using technology. And folks that haven't traditionally been a part of that, they bring a different lens and they bring an orientation. And so, like, by definition, it's inclusive.
Absolutely. Any other final thoughts on how you see apprenticeships contributing to a more inclusive workforce?
Yeah, I'd like to share some of Apprentice's numbers. And Omawali, that's really good. I love what I'm hearing and the work that you guys are doing. So thank you for sharing that. Typically, what we're seeing with registered apprenticeship is less than 4% veteran representation. However, at Apprenti, we have about 43% representation when it comes to our veterans. So we're very proud of that. In addition to that, apprenticeships on the whole, because of the large numbers of skills trade types of occupations, tend to be very heavily skewed towards men. At Apprenti, for non-trades occupations, specifically in the tech sector, we're seeing about 36% representation from women. So that is something that we're very proud of. And the last statistic that I'd like to share is representation from folks that have different abilities. In traditional apprenticeships, we're seeing about a 1% representation, but at Apprenti, we're seeing about 15%. So I share this data to say that I feel there is significant opportunity here for making sure that groups that of untapped talent do get the access that apprenticeship provides, because there are a lot of barriers, right? Not everyone can get into colleges. Not everyone has the financial and economic stature to be able to afford college. So apprenticeship really provides that access. And not only that, it really provides pathways to good paying jobs at the end of the program, and the ability to prove themselves and continue to grow. I attended another event yesterday, and one of the things that really resonated with me was from one of the participants who went through an apprenticeship program, and it said apprenticeship did not only give me opportunity and access, but it also gave me an opportunity to impact my family and to change the trajectory of my family in terms of economics. So I think that's the power of it. Mhm.
Absolutely. Thank you, panel, today for taking the time out to answer the questions about apprenticeship and how it can be an effective workforce development strategy. I really appreciate your time. I would like to ask Emmy if we have questions.
Yeah. Thank you to all of our panelists and moderate for such a thoughtful and insightful conversation. I'd like to open this up to our general audience. Feel free to drop your questions for our panelist or moderator in the chat, and we'll make sure they see it. As well as in 1 second, you'll also have the ability to unmute yourselves and ask live. All right. Attendees, you should be able to unmute yourselves and ask live or drop your questions in the chat.
Hello.
Hi, Hannon. Go ahead.
Hi. My name is Hanan Saeed. I am currently a student at Georgia State University, majoring in computer information systems with a concentration in AI analytics. Firstly, I wanted to say thank you guys so much for sharing your insights today. It's actually been really helpful, and inspiring to hear your perspectives on AI and apprenticeships and the future work. But my question is, do you guys see apprenticeships being more common pathways into tech and AI careers? It was for anyone.
I'll take it. Sure.
Okay.
So yes, the answer is definitely yes. We are currently working with one of our partners that has made this statement. Apprenticeship is going to be the only way we bring new talent into the company. So that in itself says a lot. I think we're going to be seeing more and more employers taking that stance as we move forward, and especially with the impact that AI is having on roles across organizations.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would add we're seeing a huge uptick in the number of clients interested in AI machine learning training.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just add that, if you sort of think about it from a structural perspective, an internship is typically 3 months versus an apprenticeship is probably 12 months. And so if you sort of think about the amount of data that an employer can get from you or a client can get from you, I think it's a better way for you to get to know the organization and the organization to get to know you. And I think that, if you look at the numbers, there's a huge delta between the conversion for internships versus apprenticeships, right? And so I think that oftentimes interns are sort of looking to, I don't want to say experiment, but it's not necessarily they see themselves at the organization. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I think with an apprenticeship, for the level of investment that both the apprentice and the sort of employer have to put in, it tends to lead to, I think, more favorable outcomes. And so if tech is a career path, especially, with all the disruption, especially around the early career and the entry level, I would say you sort of want to double down on a way to let an employer get to know you better. And so could it be from an intern? Absolutely. But there's just, you got 4 times more data as an apprentice. So
thank you guys so much.
Certainly.
And then we have a question in the chat. Does any of the apprenticeship programs have part-time options for students that are in college?
Our program is our training is typically 40 hours a week. So they have to be sort of there on site learning the different skills. As they deploy to clients, we do have some part-time options that are available. And sometimes people do work in addition to during the training sort of full-time. And so I would say it's really a matter of understanding your individual self and can you manage something that is intended to be, I think, full time. But we have seen people who have successfully done our training and successfully done our apprenticeship from a part-time perspective. It's not common, once again, because you're trying to get to know the employer, and like you have some pretty there's some distinct deliverables and objectives that you have to get to, which can be harder part-time, but I'd say is always worth a try.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mawale. Will candidates be assigned to just one company for 12 months, or will the candidate be assigned to multiple projects or companies?
At Skillstorm, and I think most places it's just one client, one company. The skills training happens with us, and then the on-the-job training happens with the company.
Thank you, Alan.
Same
Since
for us.
it's since it's full-time or 12 months, do you suggest waiting until graduating to apply for apprenticeship program?
Again, it
We've
might
seen
vary.
people.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Wally.
Oh, sorry. We've seen people do both. We've seen people that have waited till the end. We've seen people that will take time off from their degree. But I would say in general, we don't get a lot of college age students for our program. Like these are typically folks who explicitly did not go to college, or they did go to college and like the degree that they got wasn't able to get them a role. And so like what they have done is essentially bounced around between a couple different things and haven't really found an economic foothold. And so I think for us, what we are really finding is that folks are really looking for an opportunity to break into tech several years after they would have gotten, sort of a traditional degree from a university or a college. Sorry, Alan, go for it.
I was just saying, it may vary by company. We almost 90% of our roles do require a college degree. So we are hiring mostly college graduates. We do occasionally have roles that don't, especially for veterans, but it is rare for us.
All right, thank you for that. Last question, Kenton, you can unmute your mic and ask live.
Yes. So my name is Kenton Pope. I am a school counselor here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I had a question about pre-existing experience, right? So is it best for people to come in with some type of certification already or some type of experience? I do work with veterans as well. Or should they just come in with no experience at all, no prior background, or is it a little bit of both?
Yeah, Kenton, I think that's a great question because I think we have different models even here today. And again, for Skillstorm, we're looking for folks. We don't start with folks who have no technical background. We need folks who already know how to code in an object-oriented programming language. So we do have a specific requirement to come into our apprenticeship. Often requires a degree, definitely requires technical knowledge. But I think there are many options out there that don't have the requirements that we do.
Right.
Yeah, I would say our program does not have that specific requirement, but like one of the things that we do try to screen for is that if you say you want to be in tech, but you've never done anything to try to get into tech, that's usually not a positive indicator, right? Like I'm not saying that you have to be an expert programmer or you have to be a cyber professional, but like if you say, I want to be in tech and I've never tried to get a certification, I've never tried to do an online course, and it's like there's an abundance of sort of information out there. And we would want people to at least have taken the first step. And they might say, hey, you know what? It's really hard to do self-directed learning, or it's really hard to sort of engage like this. But we're looking for some level of intent around tech, but we do not require, certifications or a degree or anything of that sort.
Yeah,
Understood.
I'll chime in. So at Apprenti, it really depends on the employer and as well the occupation. So what we're seeing is entry-level positions in tech like computer help desk, those entry-level roles. Typically, you can enter those programs without having any prior experience or prior credentials within technology. However, we're seeing employers more and more often using apprenticeships for more mid-level and advanced roles. And in those types of job positions, they are going to be looking for folks who have either some sort of industry certification, prior experience, or a degree as needed.
Thank you.
All right. Again, I just want to say thank you to all of our panelists and moderators, including Steve, Becky, Amawale, Annie, Alan, and Charlene. Thank you just so much for your time, your expertise, and your real-world insights. Your perspectives on AI, workforce transformation, and apprenticeships have provided incredibly valuable guidance for employers, educators, and workforce leaders navigating this rapidly changing landscape. And Eve, if we can advance to our next event slide. We do have another webinar for National Apprenticeship Week that will focus on past and current apprentices of some of our partners that were here today. We will feature some apprentices from SDI and Apprentice, so be sure to join then. I will drop the registration information for that in the chat again. Otherwise, if you have time, please take the time to complete our short post-webinar survey that provides us helpful feedback as well as a way for us to connect with you if you'd like. Other than that, thank you guys so much for being here today, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Eve, if you could advance to the next event slide. I will leave this up for a couple of minutes just so you have the chance to capture the link or QR code. Eve, can you put it on the event slide, please?